Hello, hi. Okay, Sahlan speaking. Hi. I hope you guys are all well. It's been 2 weeks ago that we came together in a big group. Happy to see each and everyone. I hope you can hear me also well. Wow, good. Thank you. Um, so we've been experiencing since 3 weeks few playlists and the calls. It would be interesting for us to listen to few of the sharing from you, what is happening in your space, in your bodies while laying down and to experiencing the playlist. And before we start with the call today. So if you feel like sharing some of your experiences, please unmute yourself and share. Thank you. So it doesn't need to be necessarily experience on playlist also. If you have something which is related to this course, which is there, feel free to share. Also, if there's something coming up right now.
Yes, perhaps you hear me, Ayala? Yeah,
Yes.
I have one question. Lately, I am doing a lot of playlists for myself to experience, and I was wondering, can it sometimes be too much? Because I am experiencing the last nights more sleeping problems. So I was thinking, is it doing something with my sleep rhythm? Perhaps it is some little bit dysregulating because I'm doing too much playlist, yeah, in the day or something. That my REM sleep is. I have more problems to fall asleep lately, so I was thinking, is there a relation?
Oh, thank you. That's a good question. Take it. There's something else coming up there, or some experience to share before we dive into this. Thank you.
Well, I have kind of the same. It's up to the. I feel it like it's up to the frequencies in my body. I recognize when we have a call like this, or when I have a session the next day. I already feel that the session will come, or something in my body feels that the session will come, and then I have. Also, I have less sleep. I wake up during the night 2 or 3 times, like vibrating already. Before and after. So I think it's kind of equal. It's kind of the same as us.
Thank you, Andy. There's also Karine in the chat. She's also sharing some similar issues. Yeah. So for the people who joined in the last few minutes, hi, welcome. We are for the beginning. We are doing a little check-in on our experiences with playlist, and if you feel like sharing something which comes up right now, or you want to share about playlist, feel free to unmute you and to share your experience.
Well, once again, probably on one playlist, I really had difficulties to listen to. I also already was writing it in the comments, and I wanted to stop several times because it was so annoying from my head, from my ears. And in the last 10 minutes, I got visualization. Like I saw a really big green snake, but it was very disgusting. Really big, disgusting. It was outside, and after a while, it came inside of me, out of the inner darkness, and it went up, and it became so big, so like too big, and it came up, and also here, and it was so disgusting and annoying, and I really needed to like split a lot of times, and I felt really bad and wanted to have it out of my body. And yeah, then the music stopped, and I came back to realize what happened, and I'm still wondering what was the meaning of this really big green snake. Disgusting. Ugh. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, hi everyone. So I think that could be a starting point. We can tackle the 2 things put up so far. Thank you, Aylan, for opening the call. I think it's really good to check in just to warm up the room and to sense what is there. So there's something very beautiful in what you shared, Andy. We're going to go now into the second wave of the first month, where we're still in an introductory phase before going into the more concrete elements of the work that we do. Thank you for those who have been going into the playlist process. Let's maybe go into the website for those who are not familiar with the part of the website that hosts the experience page. So basically, when you go to world, and if you have the password, to gain access to it, there's something quite beautiful about, oh, I'm not sure if my internet's working right. Okay, so these are all quite new. They're all made this month. They're not old playlist systems, so they're pretty much what is going to be current. And these are basically experiences that we can host that would end up bringing more awareness to the dream space that is happening through us. So I think this is probably you, Andy. This is the green snake process, and this is just, for example, one of the different experiences that are underneath anything is possible. This one I made in particular. So there's 10 experiences logged into this, and we might find patterns between Andy, between Christina. Christina went into a spaceship. Bridget. It's really interesting to see that each playlist would have different experiences. So at one point you would have to own up to what goes through you. This is Carly's. And so there are others, like Mind Noise is by Caro from Barcelona. And this one is by Gra. And so on and so forth. There's one by Tom and so on and so forth. So I think this is going to be a meeting place for us. So for those who are unfamiliar with this, we're launching this month. And some of these experiences can go quite deep. People aren't always used to self-journeying, but this can actually be quite deep. So just to open the space for those who don't know this part yet, this is a very important meeting space. Okay. So in terms of sleep, thank you, Evie, and Andy for this. I'd like to invite us to the possibility where we're not exactly having a sleeping problem. If you're laying down to the music and you're not able to sleep, I'm going to reflect on my own experience when living in the island. I was sleeping hours per week. I generally, if I wasn't with other people, not with my partner, not with my kids, I can sleep as little as 2 hours per week. So when you're doing a process, you're going to have these really interesting relationships with food and sleep. Either you're going to get super duper hungry or you're not going to need food at all. When it comes to sleep, either you're going to sleep like a long time, having a relationship with the dream space. But if you're achieving REM state or the dream state while awake, the thing with sleep is one of the reasons why we sleep is we're actually looking for a set of vibrations, which we achieve during the dream space, which we achieve during REM sleep. And when you're achieving that during the inner dance, which is the goal of the sound, you don't actually need to sleep that much. It's just that we're creatures of habit, so we're wanting to just do the very thing that we're normally doing at certain times. What's going to be interesting to think about is when you are awake at certain odd hours of, say, the morning. Right now in the Philippines, it's 2:17 a.m. Melatonin levels are very, very high, and cortisol levels are quite low. And with other neurotransmitters and hormones we're going to be studying, There's actually a lot of space for insight and knowledge and wisdom. So make it productive. If you're not feeling sleepy, then actually you can lay down to more sound. You might travel, um, you might go into certain states. So begin to experience your body in a more natural way. Just learn to listen. I don't think there's such a thing as too much. I don't think you can experience too much energy. I think we're so limited and so far away from our original state that you could be journeying for years, for decades, and we're still approaching the totality of who we are. Okay, so welcome to the call. I'm really happy with what you shared, Andy. It's actually very on point to the topic that I'd like to bring up. I'm going to do maybe a 40-minute or 1 hour lecture, which can maybe open up a discussion or a dialogue between us. There's so much around the layers of the work. So when we talk about playlists, for example, there's just so many different types of experiences people are having depending on the kind of vibration that's being introduced in the space. And the new playlisting systems, they're actually quite advanced. They can be irritating, they can be mind-blowing, body-blowing, and you need to sit with some of the vibrations sometimes in order to acclimatize or get used to it. So in the case of Andy, it took you what, like 40 minutes, 50 minutes, anything is possible is about 55. So let's say 55 minutes before the green snake came and had a conversation with you because it needed to be seen. It wanted to be looked at. We're going to be opening up the space for communities around the world who are experiencing these playlisting systems. And in Belgium today, for example, there are people who are introducing this not just to people from normal environments. There's a lot of introductions to even like schools, young children, and there are quite strong experiences that are needing to be looked at. So we're going to be opening up the space to share what is it in these that's shifting bodies and minds. Right. So we're gonna speak within the month's topics. I'm gonna go to my iPad just to take notes. Hey, Matt, it's okay. You can go to your workstation. So it's all good. Okay, just give me a moment. My iPad's okay. That's good. Can you? I'm hoping you can see my screen. Yeah, we have Matt here, who flew in from the US yesterday. Just one of the many people in Maya who are part of this group. Okay, so our topic for the month is basically something to do with time. Sleep is related to time. Just like many concepts and experiences are related to time. So we're asking this month, what is time? As innerdance unto itself is an alteration of what's called time perception, how we perceive time. So when we read some of the experiences that were shared in the experience page in the website, there's actually a lot more experience of space, and there is a co-implication of time and space. Time becomes space. In some moments, space also becomes time. So we're more interested in space becoming time this month, particularly in terms of what is called deep time, or the deep history, deep story. We had a call 2 days ago, and I would love for you to catch up with that call. It was actually quite informative, and it goes together with this call. It's preparatory for this particular call. Okay, so just to not lose the point, we're going to look at the green snake. When experiences come, when symbols come up, one of the questions people ask is, do they mean anything? Because let's say there are 10 people who experienced that particular playlist, like anything is possible. And you had 10 experiences. And the green snake for now is just one of the experiences, because Andy, you were the one who shared, then we're probably supposed to look at that in particular. So one of the questions space holders are going to be asking is, when something comes up, does it actually mean anything? Does it mean nothing? Does it mean something? Does it mean everything? I would go to say, yes, it means something. Everything means something. All experiences are valid. They mean a lot. They're valid. They're important. They're essential. And when they show up, it's meant to be looked at. And I'm really happy that you brought it up. So one particular topic that I want to bring up today is okay, let me go to the website again. So new share desktop. Okay, let me go back to the website because this is helpful for now. Let's go to the home page. I want to juxtapose two different types of experience, because there's so many experiences. Like when you open this website, these are some of the old experiences that were documented, like in media in the first years, 2009, 2008. There's a lot more that came out in newspapers, magazines, radio programs. But as a starting point, I want to look at this one. This one was one of the first newspaper articles that came out on the innerdance. To read it, to quote, I went into a trance and fell from my chair to the floor, into a journey from my present adult life to childhood and then birth. I want to start out with this concept of the womb, which is synonymous with birth. So this man is maybe the most known spiritual researcher, spiritual writer in the Philippines. He's written like tons of books, and his first inner dance is this one. He went back to the womb of the mother, and then he went forward in time until he reached this present age. For him, it was such a powerful experience. He ended up writing 4 articles in the biggest newspaper in the Philippines in this year. So it's already inconceivable that in the span of an hour, he would journey from the starting point, what you might call, okay, like I was born, and then he experienced the present moment and the space in between. You know, he experiences life from birth until present. How can you actually do that? Like when the space of an hour, you can live your whole life. So this is one type of experience. Okay, there's other experiences. Something I would juxtapose there be, okay, I want to borrow from another J name. Okay, it's working. No, actually I want to borrow from the main space holder in the Philippines. There's something about her experience that's important. Okay, I need to look for it. No, it's not this one. Sorry. Let's see. Okay. To quote or to read, the first inner dance ever had, and she's had tons of them, and she's given tons of them. She had this. She saw this experience of being held in the bottom of the earth. I saw myself in a deep pit, flying flat on the ground with my eyes just gazing at the sky. Later, I saw myself in a white dress, standing on a rock, looking at the vast ocean. At one point, I was witnessing the first flames coming out of cracks in the Earth's crust. My earliest memory in human history was witnessing myself as a primitive man in a vast area. And Maite is a woman. My cheeks were painted with aqua stripes. Eventually, some of the deepest and often painful inner dance experiences took me back to the archaic moments in Africa, North Africa, North America. This has helped me to understand how the past and the future are entangled, somehow influencing each other. Okay, I'm gonna go back to the screen now. So I need to go to share screen. Wait. Yeah. So I find it important to start out with some experiences sometimes because it grounds us in concrete elements that sometimes becomes very abstract in the inner dance. Okay, so now this is good. Let's point out the difference between Jaime's experience and that of Jackie's. Sorry, Maite, not Jackie. Let's focus on Maite. Jaime had an experience of the womb process, and technically he went back to his life. So this is something you might say as a life review experience of something very personal. He experienced the totality of the person. Maite, just like so many others who have been experiencing the process for so long, you might say she experienced something related to the early memories of the human, the species. And some people, just like her, they can also be early memories of the earth. It doesn't have to be within an anthropocentric or human construct. There's this memory, there's this old memory of earth. So I want to just juxtapose that there's something about the personal, and then there's something about the planetary that seems to both come up depending on the person, depending on the situation, depending on the energy or the context is being held in the moment, right? Let's move that here, just so there's a clear distinction between the two. It's really interesting to juxtapose this. It's quite it's easier to just randomly see what would come up, to just open the space and see what would come up. But the space holders, like facilitators, can actually have the inspiration or the creativity, the intuition to allow the space to hold either of which or even both. Because somehow these are interconnected with each other. They don't need to be in opposition. Somehow the story of the human and the story of the individual, they're closely intertwined together. And somehow the inner dance experience has looked at both very, very intimately, very, very deeply. So then when we listen to, let's say, Andy's particular sharing, okay, when he sees the green snake, already we can surmise that this belongs more possibly to this aspect, right? It's either you have, let's say, a childhood experience, you have something very, very personal, and then you have something quite symbolic, something quite not belonging just to the person, but something you're tapping into that might actually be planetary. So sometimes when there is a discomfort, and sometimes people do have a hard time listening to the amount of noise that holds dimensionality, that brings about shifts in the brain systems, the brain process. that discomfort will break. It will break up, break down, break up, break through. This particular part, it will break down the personal. Sometimes we call it ego, sometimes we call it self. When that breaks down, sometimes there will be revelations of what is beyond you and what could even be beyond the species. So we might want to then use this as a possible starting point. Like, what is the breaking down of the human or the personal construct that could be part of the work that you do? It's actually quite deep service to bring about an unraveling of the earth that could start even from the personal experience. So thank you, Andy. Thank you for all those who are laying down and unraveling something about the earth. The earth really is speaking to us in many ways. Inner dance comes from the earth. I myself did not have a teacher or guru. That which initiated me was the earth. This is my healer. I lived on earth and inner dance came through. And so if inner dance or this energy passes through you, the initiation process is coming from the mother herself. The mother is that which conducts Shaktipat, that which conducts initiation, that which is sending emails to your system so that when you do get these particular messages like the green snake, when you open up the website, there was someone who saw the dragon. It could be energy in particular. See them as coming from something beyond your own mind and body. So one scientific or science-based topic that could help to hold today and the rest of our time together, or whether it be one lifetime or more, there's something about memory that in fact is quite interesting. What does it mean to remember? I find this quite interesting because in inner dance, there's actually more commonly the process of forgetting. So it's either you remember, which is the process of becoming part of the wholeness once again, or you go in the process of forgetting. The more you forget, the more you remember somehow. So when you were born, you were in some form of remembrance. What was it like dimensionally through your eyes and ears? What was it like when you first were born or prior to birth? Let's say you were in the womb. Let's say you were you were a fetus. What did the world look like? Were you just in your mother's belly, or were you actually in some kind of dream space? So let's say when you were born, a lot of those original memories that you were holding, you had to forget them in order to become just to become one member of something bigger. You're now just a member. And somehow you need to forget yourself in order to remember the part of you that's the whole. So there's this whole process of forgetting and remembering in so many different directionalities. One possible spelling for memory is mi mori. Mori is the Latin word for death. So in a way, the more you remember, the more you actually die as a self. Like me mori. I die when you construct a kind of memory. So in a way, human memories are quite different from Earth memories. This is something we can discuss. The memories of the person might, in fact, get in the way of the memories of the Earth. When you maybe study anything from genetics to evolution, the theory of evolution, and so on and so forth. We have this notion that there's something in it would be more in your body that in fact stores memories of the earth. I was speaking to this German guy who's undergoing a process here in Maya this week, and he, oh, actually, yeah, this is interesting. He talked about he adopted 2 snakes, and they grew up in his home, and they were inside this terrarium where you didn't need to teach them anything. The snakes knew what to do. The snakes knew how to be snakes. They knew how to be earth snakes. They had no access to a snake mother who would train them. They didn't go to a snake grade school or high school. They didn't go to a snake economic university or snake college. They just knew how to be snakes. So somehow he had this realization that the snakes had access to earth inside his home. He lives in Austria now. And so it might be the same for humans, and we might actually be preventing that remembrance because of the human systems. It's very, very good at unearthing us. You know, it's like so somehow these practices like inner dance is a way of coming back to the earth, right? And maybe there are other practices, maybe you just decide to just live there on the earth. Inner dance is something that came from being with the earth, that's naturalizing the normalized human. There's a very sharp difference between what is normal and what is natural. Sometimes the more abnormal you become, the more you actually find your own nature. And this is the process that I had to go through, and it is very, very uncomfortable. Okay, so I want to bring up, speaking about the German then, I think this would be a good time to look at one catchy scientific phrase. If you step away from today and you take something away, this could be it. This is a very expensive statement, but it's somehow quite useful. Okay, let me write it down. It's just 3 words. Ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. And this is by a German naturalist or zoologist named Ernst Haeckel. So we would need to define what is ontogeny, and then we would need to look at phylogeny in order to understand. Recapitulate, you might know, it means mimics, it could mean mirror, it could mean remembers. So ontogeny, firstly, is a word that describes what is the gestation, the evolution, what's the origin, the original, like the evolution process of the organism, which could be the self. Let's say when you think about the fetus in the womb, how does that evolve to become the adult, the person? Phylogeny would look more at the evolution of the species itself. And it doesn't have to be the species, it could be about the ancestral group. You know, like when you hear the word like the phylogenetic tree, sort of what Darwin first initiated. That's the idea that the human came from what came before the human, what was before the human. So here, this could be quite a useful, interesting statement. Like there are a lot of people who try to discredit Ernst Haeckel, but Phylogeny and Ontogeny was a book written by Stephen Jay Gould, one of the most important scientific minds of his time, and this is now being looked at. There's something about the way the growth of an organism actually signifies the growth of the species. Somehow, this grows according to how this grew. That the story of you, the story of any single living thing, is somehow piggybacking or interacting with the story of something much, much bigger. So it gives about this understanding that you're not just new, you're not just coming from being a baby, that the baby is actually holding on to something quite old. And somehow the interdance experience can bring about an interlinkage through remembrance of that oldness. Let's say you were disjointed, let's say you were disconnected from the origins that is present in your DNA, your cells, there's something about the spiritual practice that actually brings about the linkage. And this is quite relevant, quite real. In fact, when the first experiences in interdance was happening in the first years, a lot of people were getting a sense that the nature spirits, that our ancestors were showing up. And what could be really interesting, in fact, is depending on where you are, sometimes there are certain cultures that are more inclined to go into ancestral processes. So I've been watching experiences in so many bodies for about 17 or 18 years now. I've been watching experiences. So this could be South or North American. I've been watching bodies from Oceania. From there, I've been watching especially Europeans. This is probably the bodies I've observed the most because this is where things have spread the most. And very often when you compound the experiences people are having, there could be manifestations of like energy, emotion, and then there would be, yeah, like memories. And you can subcategorize that into either personal or planetary. There could be visions, colors, and then there would be like body movements. These could be interesting to discuss in the long term for anyone studying, because there are not to pigeonhole stereotype, but depending on where your soul chose to land, I really am, through inner dance, starting to understand culture is basically man's, or it could be that relationship with nature. When you study the circadian rhythmicity that comes with inner dance and the autonomic nervous system that does host action response mechanisms that's opened up in the process. Culture for me is really just man's relationship with nature, either from hot or cold, light and dark, seasonality, and so on and so forth. And it still goes back to earth in a way. We're still interested in how is the earth speaking through your body in terms of especially the concept of rhythm. Because inner dance does bring about the old rhythmicity, but you need to pass through the new rhythmicities that have been stored in your system or your body. So I want to erase this for now. It's not, it doesn't hold yet relevance. We need to build up to why does that even come in. For now, let's look at this from the point of view of memory. Memory is actually quite mysterious still for scientists. There's not actually that much consensus to understand what actually is memory. What does it mean to remember? Because you are tapping into either old or new memories. This is something. This is definitely like a thing. When you lay down, And when you expose yourself to certain aspects, are you forgetting or are you remembering? For one, memory has something to do with place. It holds you in place. It helps you to position yourself in space. Because when you study the memory cells in the hippocampus or the entorhinal cortex, the parts of your brain that tends to hold memories, there's such a thing called place cells or grid cells that act as some kind of mapping system, some kind of GPS system. And there's something about the laying down and closing the eyes experience that brings about a greater sense of navigation through, if we were to erase the word place, you navigate the space. And space, as we know, can be time. So you can either navigate history or you can either navigate even something like geography. Like you can travel the earth or you can travel history itself. And there's something about going into even primal, could be cosmic, ways of navigation, that there are proto-human, like pre-human or post-human forms of navigation. And when you go into an altered state, which can happen through an altered body process, altering your body can alter your mind. I think the science that can help to study that is ethology. Ethology is interested in how the biological structure also influences what's called behavior. So how your body is constructed, let's say you were a dog, you were a horse, you were a snake, your behavior and your cognition would be according to how you are anatomically structured. Like one example of this is people going into, for example, like things like light language. Light language is very, very synonymous with inner dance because in inner dance, people can speak, people might move like babies or aliens. Light language is like speaking like babies or aliens. When you study the ethological constructs of, let's say, the baby or the adult, the biological structure of a baby is not the same as that of an old human. The baby doesn't have the vocal structure. They don't have the larynx, they don't have the voice box that can actually speak spoken words. They have to go into stages of development in order to speak as we do. So what they can do is make sounds. Okay, like I hope it's okay with you, Christina. I'm going to share. Christina had like a process yesterday. No, it's actually still are today. Something weird happened with the session with Flora and Andre. I had an interesting conversation with the aliens. One of them put the tip of his index fingers in mine, and I could understand him. He asked me why I was crying, and he wanted to feel that emotion because they didn't feel anything. He showed me where they lived, and I saw that it's a very dark place, and that's why they like to come to Earth where there's a lot of light. The aliens showed her how to breathe. They had something like brachiation. I don't understand technically what that means. Well, they had no tongue. I'm actually just reading this totally now, so I didn't even know. I didn't remember she wrote this. And that's why they don't speak. They communicate through something like sonar. Then, interestingly, numbers appeared in my head. 40, 80, 40, 4080. 777 and these two emojis. Wait, am I screen sharing? Ah, you didn't see. Sorry about that. I stopped the screen share. So I was reading through this as I was speaking. Okay, so let me go back to my screen. While it's waiting, we can see here the same principles could apply. I mean, I've not really seen an alien face to face. I've had experiences of aliens where they were hovering up there and then they were creating portals where there could be communication between me and some people around me at the time. Same principle, like alien or baby. The biological structure, meaning the body is in relationship with spirit and mind. It doesn't mean that there's stuckness here because the body could be undergoing alterations. There could be an evolutionary process between awareness or consciousness and the container where we do experience life. So this is what ethology means. And I believe that there is a transformation happening both in the experience and in the body. So that when like people like Andy talk about these, there are these questions. Do they mean anything? You know, do we get attached to these? I believe that anything you're experiencing is in fact what is happening in your body. There is a transformation. Everything that you're seeing is already the change taking place either in your brain, your nervous system, or your whole body. What you're seeing is what you are becoming, and it's passing through. A becoming could also be what you're letting go. It's never really just a trip. It's not just like a movie. I believe anything that you feel, anything you sense, anything you see, it's because there is a becoming process. So were we to look at this from this point of view, ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny. So you're taking in inputs that's a lot older than what you are holding on to as a person. You're processing things that's beyond just you. Yeah. So another principle then that I'd like to bring up here is the concept of regression. There's a concept called the regression hypothesis that is put forward by a philosopher and a linguist called Roman Jakobson, which is very relevant to the innerdance process. It speaks about how there is in fact like a way to go back to the beginning, and just to remember what Jaime Licauco and Maite shared, right? They went back to the beginning of the earth, or they went back to the beginning of the womb. There is a kind of regression. I believe somehow regression is also progression. So to go back is also to go forward. And I feel we need to remember in order to go ahead and go into higher, more holistic spaces. So in a way, we have to go back to what is ancient. So the regression hypothesis is interesting, and something in this hypothesis, the Jacobsonian idea, that could be useful for us to think about in the long term. His proposal was that when you go back to the origins, to the beginning, the source, you actually invert or reverse how you might have come into the present you. So let's say the things that you first gained, let's say as a person, let's say you were a baby and you started to learn to make certain sounds, and then you put those sounds together, you start to make words, sentences. When you start to lose your old self, and there are many manifestations of this. Sometimes people start to lose certain aspects of their thinking. A lot of people lose memory. They become forgetful. There's a kind of amnesia, dementia, or Alzheimer's that comes with the spiritual awakening. Sometimes you can lose your language, certain way of speaking or comprehending speech. When you're listening to others, maybe it's hard to understand, or it becomes hard to talk. The idea of the regression hypothesis is when you start to lose yourself, you actually reverse the very process in how you gained your thinking system, how you arrived in time and space. So in a way, you're regaining, let's say, your old self. But on the way to that, you need to lose your new old self, let's say your personal self, before you regain your ancient planet species self, the earth self. There's a kind of reversal. And this is interesting indeed, especially in terms of the study of aphasia, where people start to go into speechlessness, thoughtlessness, or light language. Light language is a form of regression, in the sense that when you start to take like the letters, the phonemes, the sounds of the language, and then you start to uncombine, recombine, do different algorithms, change the numbers, change the order, what's called the chronology. The chronology. This is what the playlist does. The playlist is designed to change the chronology of human time constructs. Were you to study playlisting, playlisting can either be a form of changing the order of either songs by moving from different genres, different cultural time signatures, or they could be like sounds for people who aren't working with songs, they're working with noises. It could be vibrations, frequencies. It's up to you. You could even move different modes of silence around. That would still be playlisting in a way. This is what we're studying. There is, in fact, like a huge science to back why we do things the way we do. There is some dense understanding as to why we're exposing people with the dimensionality and the kind of noise that comes with the playlist. And that's why people are experiencing those effects. Okay, so let me clean up. Thank you for being with me so far. Okay, let's go back. Let's concretize this. So there's something in the reason why we lay down. Let's go back to memory. It has something to do with memory. Maybe the more gross or simple explanation that's robust enough for us to keep bringing it up. One of the reasons for laying down is remember we talked about the place cells, the grid cells. We're displacing the sense of place that is very concrete when your eyes are open and you're sitting up or standing up. There's something about the human memory system that actually evolved and changed when we stood up and open our eyes. We could see more, we could hear more. There was a greater awareness of the world that would be what you might call conscious, and we painted away, shoved away the unconscious. So when we lay down and go into a horizontal, the word horizon shows up in philosophy as the ability to see far. When you lay down, you can actually see farther. When you go into a horizontal position, something happens to your mind. You're displacing your sense of space, and in a way, you actually start to extend that sense. So what your mind might have been centered in your prefrontal cortex, you can actually stretch out and extend the mind across space and time, and you start to think of deep space or deep history, deep time. There's something about memory that gets triggered, but the question is like, what kind of memory? Because there are different stages of memory. There are different types of memory. So when you think about human memory, then you might list down, let's say, explicit memory, where you can remember actual moments that have happened. You want to ask, do animals and babies do that? There would be procedural memory. There would be long-term memory. Let's not even go into animal memory, because that's going to be there's a lot of debate there. But for babies and young children, is there long-term memory? Is there procedural memory? Is there episodic memory? So this is founded on a brain system that is very, very specific to the human, like semantic memory, like the memory of how meanings are networked across the human system. So with that, I feel that the kind of memory actually that happens in innerdance is not necessarily human. It could be inside a human, but it could be what is in other organisms, what could even be pre-human. So we at the stages of memory, evolutionary memory, like how did we get to our present memory? I feel that we're actually, this is interesting, we're remembering old memory itself. It's so circular, it's so oxymoronic. We are remembering not just content, but the very structure of memory itself. So there are many stages in evolution of memory. There's like reinforcement, there's bias competition. One that's easier to explain would be muscle memory. And muscle memory in humans is not exactly the same as in other organisms. And it's because we're bipedal. When we stood up, a lot of muscle memory is actually in, like here, our hands, the way we grip, the way we grasp things activates a lot of there's a lot of activation in the parietal and the frontal lobe, and then the temporal lobe. There's a lot of activation in the brain that coordinates the hands with the eyes, the hands with the rest of the body. So that's one of the main memories that had to develop, that then would lead the way to these more human aspects. Through the course of evolution, one of the more recognizable kind of human ones would be goal memory. And then there would be social memory. One of the others that would be kind of beyond human, that could be shared with other species, would be feature memory. And this is the ability of the early hominids, say the Homo habilis or the Homo erectus, before Homo sapiens, the ability to remember visual and auditory cues. We started to network the things that we were seeing after we had stepped away from Africa. Okay, so I'm going to let these go. Like, one of the things that I want to focus on is that's very, very relevant to the laying down experience. What are we remembering? Let's take this guy away. What are we remembering when we lay down? There's a specific memory actually that becomes very, very prominent when we're here. Christina, are you on the call? Okay. Could you share what happened to you with that partner work that happened with that guy from the Caribbean? The thing where he was making noise and something happened. I asked you to share during the activity this morning.
Yeah, we were doing a partner work, and I think was the first session for him, and he didn't know how to do really. So he started to make really a lot of noises with all the things that we had in the space, and this was very very annoying. And I was really really angry with him because I couldn't support anymore so much noise. So I stand up and I said, please, please, stop all the sounds. Please, I need silence. And at this moment, all the light was off, uh, all the music, and the space was in silence. So he started to make a noise like, ooh, ooh. And at this moment, I start also to do this sound, ooh, 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 ooh. So making this noise, I became a bird. And I start uh, doing the movements like a bird. And at one point, the music start, and there were sounds like in the forest. And I found the same noise that I was doing, the ooh ooh. So I had to go to the speaker to find this noise because it was my mother, no? It was really, really amazing that the same sound that I was doing, he was doing, was at the same time in the speaker. Yeah. That's it.
Okay, so you basically became a bird.
Yes.
All right. Cool. Let me go back to my screen. So this for me just brings so many memories of people becoming, like, just in the last days here, there are people who have become like a horse or like a leopard, and then when they're saying it, they're not just saying, I was looking at it, they actually became it, so it wasn't just even like a remembrance, it was like an actual becoming, like that level of empathy, that level of um yeah. So there's something about laying down, and so if I was to maybe think about what kind of memory, what are we remembering, not just like the content, like what dimensionality are we remembering. It would be navigation memory, like there is a type of memory based on the ability to understand your own position in space. And based on the work that we do, because we are using a specific tool, we are dependent on a specific tool that we could either let go or we could try to understand what is it in sound or vibration that performs navigation. Like within the sound, you can actually sense a greater expansive awareness of the space around you, not just outer space, but inner space. When you think of animals, and if you research like what kind of animals actually conduct music, not a lot of animals conduct music. And what's really interesting about that is our direct ancestors. Let's say the apes, the primates, the monkeys, the gorillas, the chimpanzees. These are the animals that actually don't have that much music. They're not that melodic. They're not that rhythmic. Their communication is closer to verbal rather than the non-verbal, of which music is. So when you think about the animals that do conduct music, then you would think about birds. Insects hold a kind of rhythm, like cicadas, the crickets. Then you'd have the bats. Then you would have the dolphins. And most especially, the most musical of all animals would probably be the whale. The whale song holds the greatest song structure that has been studied. So when you think about it, not actually a lot of animals have music. So scientists, zoologists have been trying to understand why do they use music at all? And they could be doing it to entertain themselves, but it feels like a lot of the feedback is about navigation, that even birds actually have something sonic. There's like a sonar. So thank you for your alien experience, Christina, as well, where we realized that aliens have a brain capacity that allows for what's called echolocation. And echolocation is a way in which animals are able to send out like a sound. And when they receive that sound, they're actually able to convert that into an awareness of space. You know, like dolphins can send out like clicking noises, and humans who are blind can learn this. They can conduct echolocation. They can actually see. They send out clicking noises, and when they receive mechanically the sound, it actually can translate into an awareness of the space, like something in their bodies and their brains can see that. So it's very interesting that when we do lay down as well, there's something about how sound translates to images. Like certain sounds then would shift into color, shapes, or particular images. There's a kind of synesthesia or translation happening between vibration and knowledge. Something concretizes, something translates. And this is what innerdance is doing then. Innerdance, in a way, is providing a remembrance of, it could either be the oceanic, when you think of birds, then you're thinking about up there. Like when you think about it, most of these don't actually live on land. It's just like these guys. So we needed, let's say, phylogenetically, we were this, we needed a way to explore or navigate the space. And it was more the space of that which is more fluid or like wind-like, you know? And we could soar, we needed that all the more before we stepped on land. We needed that. And somehow we need that now. For some reason or another, we are going back there. I guess it's interesting to think about other organisms, and snakes have come up so often in inner dances. There's some reason why people need to remember maybe what it was like to not have the same kind of spine, the same kind of autonomic nervous system. Like why do we navigate the earth in that way? But for now, let's look at the musical qualities of certain organisms, because I think they're telling us something. I feel that there's actually a playlisting system that we are uncovering that's phylogenetic in nature. And that's why I find these sharings, like the green snake or becoming a bird, becoming aliens, like interesting. Because when you go back to the ethological principle, it's actually hard to communicate as these guys, because anatomically, if your biological structure isn't like these, you can try, and you can't exactly come into the same experience of conducting the whale song or the dolphin communication. But somehow, because phylogenetically, because ontogeny recapitulates phylogeny, another kind of ethology can be happening somehow, because maybe this is inconceivable in a scientific perspective, but from a spiritual experience, there is this other kind of ethology that remembers what was like to not actually even be on the earth as we knew earth to be terra firma or land. So this for me is a brain development. It's a regression. It's like a going back, but it's also a progression. This is what I wanted to point out in the Jacobsonian sense, that there's something we need to remember, and this is why we're going back. There's something we need to remember that's missing in us that would allow us to go back into wholeness. Okay, so this is us maybe looking at more the natural world. I'd like to go back to the cultural line. Remember, okay, let's clean up. Remember, I spoke about these different continents where innerdance has been happening for so many years now. And there's so many notes. Thank you for all the bodies that have laid down in the innerdance process. There's some people in this call who have been in the innerdance for more than 10 years already. And we're observing the changes. We're observing the changes that are happening. So maybe you've been in this for a year or two. You're also in this kind of energy laboratory. Oceania would be where Australia, the Fiji Islands, New Zealand would be. I don't know anyone who's come from that continent yet. Maybe you guys could be the ones to Antarctica. Maybe you can introduce it there. Oh, it's missing. Asia, Africa, Europe, Americas, Oceania. Yeah, basically that could be it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There should be 7. I want to borrow some thoughts from a deep thinker. He's one of the most important theory of everything progenitors. His name is Marshall McLuhan, and he is one of the first media theorists globally. He had many observations of what was happening when electronic technology was beginning to enter the human process. We can take for granted what we might know about AI, about the internet, about MacBooks, Apple devices, Androids. McLuhan would be really interesting because he was observing the changes at the time of the early onset of radio and television. And he was observing changes in the psychological, the neurological. But what was also interesting is he was looking at the anthropological. He is quite an academic. He's a Joycean scholar from Toronto in Canada. And I feel there needs to be a rereading of Marshall McLuhan because a lot of his ideas were quite ahead of his time. And even now, a lot of people are using media. They're using especially, that's supposed to erase, especially this. We're using it and it's using us. And I don't feel there are enough conversation as to what is it doing to us, because it's changing us. And when innerdance actually first came into the process, social media was initially being introduced through Facebook. Innerdance was born along with Facebook. That's when it was beginning to spread, and technology evolved with innerdance. There's something about technology that about innerdance is technological in a way. It's like a spiritual technology. It's not just the spiritual, dot dot dot. It's there's something in it that's downloading mediumship. Because to Marshall McLuhan, media isn't just the things that we're using. Media could be dimension, and media could also be what's called the environment. And something important that he gave us was this idea that he spoke the statement, the medium is the message. I'm pretty sure some of you might know this statement. And one of the tenets of this is the message is often what we call the content, you know, the content within a communication, the content within anything that contains information. For McLuhan, in his observation, the medium is just as important, or maybe even more more dominant than the message itself. There's more primacy in the medium. So when you shift the medium, which could be a dimension. So let's say you listen to a playlist, and the playlist is acting on a particular dimension. Let's say it's a sequential playlist, like what we call song by song. That's a particular medium, which is a particular environment, as opposed to let's say a playlist that holds more noise, that activates a greater aspect of the brain. So let's say song by song can trigger elements in the brain that's very localized, very emotional, very personal. The noise aspect of certain playlists, the activation is very regional. So the spreading of activation in the brain can spread throughout the whole nervous system. It doesn't just activate, let's say, the frontal lobe or the temporal lobe. It can spread through the occipital, the parietal, and then spreading throughout the whole peripheral nervous system. So when you think about the medium as a message, something this gives us is the content is bound to change because we are looking at it from a different way. And this is something happening not just in innerdance. Humanity itself is moving across dimensions. We're moving into different dimensions. So these emergent spiritual processes are allowing the humans to conduct that movement, either through going back or going forward. So looking at Christina's two experiences, she regressed into a bird, but then the following day she progressed into talking to the aliens. It's both accessible in one human body. Okay, so I want to read from McLuhan. I'll do it slowly, just so even though I'm reading. He wrote a book called On Media, and to quote him, he said, after 3,000 years of human evolution, by means of fragmentary and mechanical technologies, the Western world is imploding. During the mechanical ages, we had extended through space. Today, after more than a century of electronic technology, and he wrote this many decades ago, maybe in the 1950s or 60s, he said, today, after more than a century of electronic technology, like more than 100 years of experiencing electronic technology, we have extended our central nervous system itself in a global embrace, abolishing space and time as far as our planet is concerned. So he was one of the first people to introduce this idea of the global village. Like to him, and this is way before the internet, the global village to him was the planet is becoming a one brain. His teacher, no, he was influenced by the ideas of Teilhard de Chardin, and Teilhard de Chardin came up with the idea of the noosphere. And this is prior to the Gaia theory by Lovelock. It's quite similar in nature. The noosphere is the whole Earth is becoming one consciousness. And in Marshall McLuhan's observation of what is happening through electricity. Electronic technology has to do with light and information, and how this might have actually been trapped because of other technologies that were not electronic in nature. Most specifically, what he would call the visual technology, especially in terms of literacy, like print, which is book-based learning, which is very, very linear. What is super interesting in the thought system of McLuhan is he had this understanding that like modern media actually retribalizes cultures, retribalizes man. In a way, we're going back to Africa. In a way that we left Africa through the technology of the book. The book is a very, very linear, very, very linear media. And there's something about modern technology that's very retrolinear, where feedback systems could once again be likened to the technology of oral tradition. So Marshall McLuhan's student, Walter Ong, called this moment a secondary orality, whereas we're going back to oral tradition. We think we are modernizing, but in a way we're actually going back to archaic dimensions. So I find that really, really interesting. I want to read some words spoken by McLuhan. I took this from a talk called Pattern Recognition. So yesterday I sat down somewhere when I was picking up Matt, who's beside me from the airport. Let me read the quote. There's a profound sense of involvement that increased with electronic media. Involvement. And he's talking about the West. He's talking about the West here. So that prior to that, in the West, there was more of a detachment. That was the medium that was very, very present in the West. So I'd like those from Europe, from the West, to maybe meditate on the changes that are happening in your own society that is undergoing not just the indoctrination of internet, but also spiritual technology. One of the effects has been the increasing orientalization, and this is interesting, orientalization of the Western world. Isn't that cool? The Western world is being orientalized because of electronic media. Even as we, the West, pour and lavish our 19th century technology upon the East. So in a way, the East is going through an occidentalization, meaning that the East is becoming Western, but somehow what the West isn't observing or realizing is the West is actually becoming African. There's something about the technology that allows the West to become more Asian or African or South American. So to continue, to quote, where am I? Because it's so environmental. Okay. We are doing to ourselves the exact opposite. We're orientalizing ourselves by going inward. The West is going inward. And it's very easy to see them, the East is going outward. He used the word westward, but what he meant was outward. because the east is naturally eastward. It's very difficult to see ourselves going inward because it's so environmental with us that it becomes almost imperceptible. So what he's saying is that the West doesn't notice the easternization of the West. We are orientalizing ourselves while westernizing the East and seemingly taking much credit to ourselves for the westernizing and not even noticing what we are doing to ourselves. I feel that innerdance has something to do with this shift. I've been observing bodies for a long time, and innerdance started with, let's say, a lot of Chinese bodies. There were loads of Chinese bodies, Indian bodies, bodies from Thailand, from Indonesia, from the Philippines. I was observing it. In the first years, these Asian bodies were going through a lot of these body movements, shaking. So like so many years ago, the bodies were moving, shaking, going wild, screaming, crying. And when I worked with people from Europe, say, people from Australia, the Australians were the first Westerners I ever worked with. People from North America, mostly. In the beginning, bodies weren't moving, but images would always appear. They were all about the colors and the images. So the activations that were happening were more in the occipital lobe or the visual cortex area, as opposed to the Asians, where the activations are more frontal lobe more movement based. Could be parietal lobe like sensations, and somehow over the years it happened very slowly, and I almost didn't notice it in the beginning. I would meet them in Asia where they would come, or then I would start traveling to the West. This started to invert. You make space. This happened. Oops. Oh, it doesn't fit anymore. This happened. So now a lot of you are part of these communities where the body, it's more in the West, like the bodies are moving. And then now I work with the Asians, like a lot of bodies aren't moving anymore, and then people are starting to see images. So I find it's really, really interesting that the East is becoming the West, and the West is becoming the East. And it's not just to look at it from the present moment. Like Tu Weiming, for me, said one of the most beautiful quotes. He said the past of Europe is the future of Asia, and the future of Asia is the past of Europe. So in a way, we're becoming each other, like as one Earth. Whatever experiences those who went to temperate cultures, who went to found rationality, there's like a kind of an interesting process where there's now a borrowing from those who went to the East, from Africa. For those who don't know my story so much, my first inner dance was when I heard the words, "The mother and I are now one." And then my body exploded into movement. And before I exploded into sound, I heard the words, "It began in Africa." And for me, Africa is not a continent. Africa is a vibratory memory. It's a vibratory memory. And so I feel that if it began in Africa, it actually goes back to Africa. There's a circularity here. There's a feedback loop here. There's some kind of feedback loop here. And there is no East or West at the end of it, but we are needing to go through a ritual of remembrance. There's something in the body that is phylogenetically, like very early humans, the first Europeans, the first Asians, the first Australians, they do have these memories that are somehow important to synthesize and integrate in us. So don't think that this laying down process is really just a spiritual modality. There's something in the music that's intermixing, mixing up brain stuff that's bringing about these experiences of green snakes, becoming birds, talking to aliens, that has something to do with chronology. I think one way to introduce the study of time and space, this is space, this is time. In Russian formalism, I found this one concept helpful. It's called fabula and sujet. And this belongs to narratology, sujet. Okay, so fabula would be the plot or the story. Sorry, no, it's the story, the theme, the main theme, and sujet would be the plot. So let's say when you create a movie, when you tell a story, the essence of the story is one thing, and how you tell the story, you could either start from the beginning, you can start from the end, or you could do like a what do you call that, when you start from the middle, in medias res. It's really up to you how you want to tell the story. So that's chronological in a way. So when you conduct a playlist which unfolds through time, and say you're using songs, depending on how you order the songs, let's say you start with this, and then you could just jump there, and then you can just go back there, and you can just go back there. This is what we've been doing. This is what playlisting is. So when you think about light language is messing up the order. It's messing up the sujet that then would expand the idea of the much larger story that's beyond just the personal story, beyond just the trauma, beyond the personal content. And so when you think of Africa in that way, that is a form of remembrance, isn't it? Because through that long evolutionary process, what is language? What is speech? What is thought system? Language organized 5,000 years ago what had been taking place over hundreds of millions of years, right? Like we kept moving. There was movement. There was like the auditory, the echoic, like taking in the sounds, making so many sounds as we developed our larynx. As we learned to make sounds, we developed our bodies, and then we developed our visual cortex. We created the iconic network. It took hundreds of millions of years, and only let's say 20,000, maybe 10,000 years ago, depending on how you understand language, let's say written language was maybe 5,000 to 3,000 years before present. That's what language did. It organized the whole evolutionary ancestry, and we're messing up with that. We are shifting the current chronology, like the deep historical line. We're messing that up because it's time. You know, it's not that we're letting go of the words. It's just that we're creating new combinations, and this is what playlisting is doing. This is what we're studying. So depending on how much is being recombined and reselected, it would bring about certain effects. Okay, so that's the gist of my lecture or my sharing. I think this could actually pave the way for a conversation between us. I was speaking to Sophie from Belgium, and she was telling me that there's actually quite a lot of experimentations happening in Belgium where teachers themselves are using some of the newer, weirder, noisier playlists, I think, in schools. And I think that's like a really interesting thought. Primarily, as I'm working on this theory, and I'd like to study this more, I'd like to research more, I feel that the noisier playlists actually are more adaptable for children because their brain states are more regressive, more primal, more phylogenetic as they go through their stages of ontogenetic development. I feel that the children are closer to the earth. So I wouldn't necessarily automatically use emotional songs for children. Understanding the way the mind activates the hippocampus is responsible for memory, and then emotions is according to the amygdala. Children use their basal ganglia a lot more. So instead of sequencing, the amygdala and the hippocampus are very good at sequencing memories, like personal memories of what happened like years ago, episodic memories, long-term memory, and children don't have that. The kinds of memories children have are more present, they're more instantaneous, they're more in the moment, and the part of the brain that's responsible for that is the basal ganglia, which is something we're tapping in the innerdance. This is where we're rerouting dopamine systems into the striatum and the basal ganglia. The hippocampus hides time cells, but the kind of timing that the hippocampus holds is very chronologically human memories. The primal memories are more accessible to children because the kind of timing held by the basal ganglia is very earth rhythmic. It's actually quite fast. So our progression into adults actually meant we had to slow down very fast vibration. Fast vibration would be gamma, would be high oscillating frequencies. To learn language, to learn how to think, we actually had to slow down gamma to beta. And that involved timing. That's why we got used to listen to certain types of music. That's the popular music, like the Spotify music, the things you'd find on YouTube or iTunes. Now we're learning to listen to music that transcends the timing of the emotional. And that's why some of these new playlisting systems are becoming prominent. So either we can listen to the Belgian community. I'm really interested, like Sophie said, okay, she wanted to share the notes, and she's asking, should we write them? Should we do a Zoom call? So why don't we just bring this up in the global call? Because it's very related to what we're actually be talking about. And this could lead us somehow into more conversations in music on what is it in the music itself. I don't think we can go into music without understanding the deeper lines, and to understand this from a deep story perspective, I think this is a good way to start. So yeah, I want to thank you for listening. I'm gonna ask Ahilan to host maybe a conversation as he opened the conversation, and I'm gonna be quiet now. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Wow. I have really like a lot of notes. Thank you for this, bridging everything together. After being here, listening to Pi for so many years, but still listening to all those of new concepts while being everything quite old. It's really doing something to my mind and to my body at the very moment, and I can see how even listening to this is changing some, or allowing me to remember in a deep way. And in the last local call in Germany, we were talking about how we even remember, or how we even learn to learn. And we were looking into the brain of a child in the German local call. And so that's all come together here right now when we talk about that what we talk about in the last few hours. So thank you for this. So if you want to have something to share about your experiences, or also if you if something is coming up or came up throughout the last few minutes and hours, please feel free to open the mic and share with us. And I would also be interested in to listen to the Belgian community notes. Yeah.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Is it okay for me to speak? Okay. Thank you very much. Been here a little bit late, but I've been listening, I think, the last 30 minutes or so. And I made some notes because since the beginning of January, I've been experimenting with some playlists in the classroom. I'm teaching 6 to 7 year olds, so they're quite little, especially in like a relaxation exercise. I've been working with the Womb Room playlist, where we are trying to make an inner circle and an outer circle, and the children in the inner circle, I'm sorry, need to close their eyes, listen, and try to just relax, while the outer circle is trying to comfort the inner circle by touching them, by giving them a massage or whatever, just holding the person that is sitting right in front of them. Not always easy because children like to open their eyes, they like to see what is happening. However, they are trying. So, and I felt like a sort of peaceful energy entering the classroom. They were all very, very quiet, and I mean, many kids in my class are not at ease. They feel the constant urge to move around, to shuffle, to talk, and they were all very quiet. It felt like a giant blanket of peacefulness covering our classroom. So it was very nice to see. And afterwards, we had a little talk. It was like, I think, 10 minutes maybe, just for relaxation. And they were all like, oh my God, I felt so peaceful. It was very relaxing, a little bit tired. Kids started yawning during the relaxation session. So yeah, they were very, very calm, very cool to see. And I've also been experimenting with focus exercise. So like the kids need to learn how to work in school, but how to do it like independent. And it's a process for them because they're not used to that. Most of the time someone helps them. And now they have to like make a schedule or, okay, what am I gonna do first? Am I first gonna do some math and whatever, then do some writing? So it's very hard for them to focus and to focus on what have I already done, what not, whatever. So I've been experimenting with the sleep playlist. I think the first one was sleep entrainment. 2, I think that is the Josh. I'm not quite sure. They were very quiet, focused. They worked very hard. So I thought, yes, my job here is done. But I was like, okay, I'm going to experiment some more. Try the sleep entrainment 1, where I noticed that the kids made a lot of mistakes while they were working, but they were also very calm. And today I was like, okay, let's try another one. And I tried Solstice. But to my opinion, they were, how can I explain this in English? There was like an up swiping energy. I don't know how to explain. And they were not at ease. But maybe it was the first time. And although they made little mistakes, I felt that there was something in the classroom that was not, peaceful, like in the first sleep entrainment 2 playlist. But yeah, I need to do this experiment a little bit more. So I'm excited to see what is going to happen and how this will evolve. Thank you that I could share this with you.
Thank you. Happy to see the little innerdance community baby Una. It's really beautiful. Yeah, if anyone else wants to share, please either raise your hand or just open your mic and share. Okay, Sandrine.
Hi, everyone. Nice seeing you all. I'd like to share too a little bit about what I experienced with the list. I work part-time as being a trauma therapist at home, and the other part I work in school and for kids from 2.5 until 12-year-olds. And I give their lessons in resilience and resilience and how do you say it in English? Yeah, the big container of resilience. I'm gonna say it, and like social skills. And for me, it was really a very big eye opener because I work with all those ages. So I experienced the last 2 weeks, but just with the playlist of the womb room, just to have it clear, to see how every different age would react on it. Also, like in a little bit of a different containment. And with the youngest, I also used Caroline, but only the first 15 minutes because afterwards there was a lot of English talking, and then I can see that they because of the Dutch, that it didn't have the same energy. So what happened? I first started with the youngest kids from 2.5 until 4. And the major thing that I could see is that I used it like when there was like a free play moment, and then I used it while they were playing. But the reason why I in the first place used it was because there was a situation, a crisis. It's like a normal school, but within a normal school, it's like an inclusive story. So we have also a lot of kids with their personal background. So it means that one moment there was a young girl of 4 years old, but she has like a big attachment problem, but she's also at like a mental age of a 1 year and a half, 2 years. So it means that she has a very big difficulty to explain herself. So what happened, it was a very cold day. She was outside and her hands was very freezing and cold. So when she came inside, they were bloated and they hurted a lot. But for her, it was a very big trigger. So she went truly into a crisis because she could explain herself. And she was yelling and crying, but then she's unstoppable of getting peace into herself because she is fighting against something external that she doesn't have she couldn't regulate herself. So at that moment, I wanted to help her and to want to put her hands under the water, but she was like, then she was fighting against external fear that we could not see, but you can see that she was really into a big crisis. So then I thought about the playlist. So I took her with me together with, at the end of the Monday, I have like the group with the kids with the most, because I work with them, with the ones who are not on their, if their mental age is not on the same level as the other one. So I had a class with a lot of kids, and I took her with me. I put her in between my legs. I put on the womb room, and it was like within 3 or 4 seconds. It was really so quickly. She heard the music. She got it totally into flow. She looked at me, and normally she has not a clear view, so it was really clear in her eye. She just came with me. I said, "Come, would you like to sit with me?" And she said, "Yes." So she really get into my womb. How can I explain it? So she was between my legs. I put a blanket on top of her. I just, how do you say it? Like this in English? Rocked her. And it took like 10 seconds and she fell asleep. So she went into a major crisis, and after she went to sleep and she slept the rest of the hour. But next to that, there were like another 15 kids who were playing around with that. So that was kid number one. There was another one, a kid with autism, but with like a very severe form of autism. And he really normally is stayed in the other classroom. So we have 3 classrooms, and in Monday afternoon, they all get open and everybody could play in all the rooms. But he always stays at his own table with his own thing because it's for his own safety. But I was in the room there with the other girl. She was sleeping between my legs. The other ones were playing, and I was like hating it. I was sitting. And then at suddenly he came in, but normally we can't get him into another room. So he came in. He came to the box. He looked at me. I had eye focus. I could see into his soul. Otherwise, he can't take any eye contact. I could see into his soul. He looked at me, and then he went to the car. He sit it down and he played on his velvet car. But he normally does not do it. He's just like we call it vlinderen, like a butterflying, and rocking all the time. And he's very energetic, so he doesn't find a lot of inner peace. So then he just set it down and he played with his car. After that, he put it up, and then he went to we call it like the doll room, and because there were other kids playing, and he was like getting into contact with them, but he never gets in contact with. And so it was I was sitting there with my mouth open, and I said, "What is happening here?" So he was in contact. It's not like he was really playing, but he was into the group. But the tension was not too much for him. He stayed there. He was looking at them. He was looking at how they played, like a moment of eating a bread or drinking without their imaginary play. And he was staying there for the rest of the day. He stayed there in the room when I was playing the womb room. Another boy, he has like an impulse control, which is very low. So he can't find inner peace, like what Nini just said, a lot of rockets into his body. And he stayed down next to me when I was sitting with the girl between my legs. He looked at me and he stayed there really for 3-4 minutes, but it's already very long for a kid. Just in like, how do you say it, the kleermaker, if you call it in Dutch. And he was just listening and sitting and calming down and getting grounded. And I moved around his back and I with my hands, and he just looked at me and he was sitting. It was crazy. And then he just took some blocks and started making a construction. But it's a kid which normally he couldn't find 2 minutes of peace. He's always running around and 1 minute there, 1 minute there, 1 minute there. So it was really nice to see what happened. That was the first week. The week afterwards, this week, and also the other ones, everybody was a lot of play, but there was like play coming from connection with each other, another play from energy with blocks and it's staying in the body, and they're playing, and not a lot of arguments. Everybody was playing with each other. Also, like other teachers were coming in and I said, "What is this happening here, Sandrine?" I said, I know. It's the music. It's the music. I was really amused by the effect. But I said, okay, let's do this next week again. So this week I did it again to see what happens. I used the same playlist, and then again I could see that there was a calm in the room with the kids. Then there was another kid who had like also autism, who came to me and said, teacher, I'm feeling so peaceful, but I'm so a bit tired. I said, do you want to come and lay down with me? Oh, yes. So I take another time. I took a blanket, and he was into my in between my legs, and also after 2-3 minutes, he was just sleeping. But they're all kids with a lot of internal ruckus, internal not knowing built energy, who doesn't find an outcome. So for that way already, I'm really amused about, I don't know if that's a good word, but to see what's just happening in 2 times that I used the music. That's for the smallest one. I used also when I give we have like a big room to do sports and a smaller room to do sports, and I always use that big room to work with the kids every week on Tuesday. So for the kids from primary school, from 7 years old until 12, I go there to work 2 hours around resilience. So with them, I did my exercises, and like the last 15 minutes, I used the music. For some, they had the exercise that it was about giving trust to each other and within themselves, how to be a good friend to each other. So they just needed to walk around the room and like a train with 2 people, and one put their arms on the back of the one who was standing before them. And the one in the back who had to close their eyes, and giving trust to himself and giving trust to the room and the space. And the one in front, he has to be like the caretaker, and he has to be in trust with himself and in trust with the kid to make sure that he's also feeling safe just by walking through the room. That was the exercise. We just walk with 2 people to the room, and I put the music on, and your guider, your friend, is taking you to your safe place. But I didn't say anything more. I just said, it's up to you to see where you're going. Where would it be? Where is a place where you feel safe and on your own? And we did it. But when they were walking, it was not like I was thinking, oh yeah, they're all in the zone and they're all. And so I was thinking, oh my God, there's nothing gonna come out of. The half of the kids, they were like, okay, they're really doing it. The other ones, they're peeping, and they have like some still inner energy who is like wanted to come out. But it was very interesting to see also to use the the form of music to say, try to listen to the music and follow the rhythm of the music. Because for kids, it's very difficult to regulate their inner energy. So with the heartbeat, it really makes them learn, because I work with like level 1, the tempo of the rhythm, walk on the beat of the heart that you're hearing. So you can see that they needed the front, the one who's behind the wheel, he needed to adjust himself also to the heartbeat, to that rhythm, to go, how do you say it in English? Om te vertragen, to slow down. So the one in the back, his good friend, would be more in peace and would be more in safety. So that was the exercise. After that, we went into a circle and I asked like, okay, how was it for you guys? And what were your experiences? And what did you see or what did you feel? And then it was crazy to see that, because it was only like something of a 10 minutes, that a lot of them was all about water. So it was not like, oh, I didn't see anything, it was black, blah, 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 blah. No, it was, oh my God, teacher, they were really all like, oh my God, you really need to know where I was. So there were a lot of them all talked about being in a container or in a place where there was water. Was it a sea? What is around a fountain? And a lot of them talking to dolphins. A lot of dolphins who were talking with them, communicating with them. Next to that, there was a very nice experience that one girl said, "I like the water was protecting me." I said, "What do you mean with the water was protecting you?" There was a very big wave. And then at that moment, it didn't took me away into the water, but it went around me. So it means that my feet were on the ground into the sea, but the wave was around me and protecting me. But before that, I saw a goldfish, a golden fish, that was saying something to me. But then with the wave was around me, the fish was on the ground, and I said, oh no, it can't be here, I need to put it into the water. So all those stories were very, very detailed. It was not like, okay, someone said something, I also need to say something. They were all very detailed. There were a lot of cheetahs. There were people also like with a very difficult background at home. I was on a big bird, and the big bird was taking me away between the sky, was taking me away into the sky. What else? Also, when people, I don't see, I said, okay, but did you feel something? And then everybody, oh, yeah, feeling, yeah. And then that was about the vibration that they were feeling. And then one said, oh, yeah, it was like my heart. How do you say it, teacher? It was like a wave of warmth was coming, wave, like, it's strange, but it was like my heart was so happy. I had a happy heart. And then they looked at me. Do you understand what I mean? I know it's strange that I'm telling it. But like I had a happy heart. I don't know what it means, but it was like that. And it's really not easy for all those ages to talk about their inner world. So it was very beautiful to see how they experienced it. But I also saw, my observation is that how older they were, how more clear they were hearing into the music. So when I was doing it with the ones who were 12 years old, then it was like, the heart, I was a little bit afraid. And then there is like a man who's like chanting Hebrew or very, very nice. And then we're like, I thought about my niece who died. And another one told about, when I was hearing that, it felt like I was hiding myself underneath a bed, and then there was like a pirate and he cut my throat. So I was in shock. But after that, I didn't felt anything. So you can see there is a difference in the wave, also in the age of the kids. But in the same age, there was another one said, I really felt like I was in the womb of my mother, and when he's chanting, it remembers me of my father, who was always singing like some lullabies before we go to sleep. But also for those kids who are 12 years old, it's not easy to talk about. Sorry to say, oh, I don't know. A lot of visuals were also coming with them, and a lot of the expression of the vibration in their body. So yeah, it's a very nice experience, but there is not a big but still, there is also for me like, how are we going to use them? So I have a good area to explore with them, because I work with them on different levels, and there is a lot of nice observations coming out. But like how older they get, you can see there's a lot of fear coming up, and then it's like it's going to be a search or an exercise or an experiment to see, like, because now with the oldest one I did it like at the end, 5 minutes that I still had, and there were a lot of fear, but I really didn't have a lot of time to really work with that fear. So yeah, it's going to be a search, or going to be, and then there is a question for me also, like if you could look for, okay, this is going to be like a playlist when the goal is more about relaxation and getting and ground, and more help them ground, and maybe another one is one who brings something up, so I could work with that or something. It's more like a question, like for the future, how we can organize it more or something. So okay, I'm gonna leave it with this, but it was already for me a nice experience. Thank you.
Thank you, Sandrine. Wow. Thank you.
But I do feel already there is a very big importance with people like with high sensitivity disorder. I don't want to call it disorder, but that the high sensitivity, autism, that you can see that like immediately they got grounded from it. It was really it was really nice to see. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Really good to hear, and to be also somehow be full into the experience of what is happening in the school in Belgium, in the middle of Europe. Yeah. Emmy? Yeah.
Hi, I'm Amy. So I don't have a background in children. I have a background in behavioural insights and human-centred design. From the past, I've now retrained in trauma, and I often use, with ADHD, and I often use audio to kind of help with that. But I actually had, I thought it was really interesting that we're talking about children, because when Pi was speaking, something came up for me around children and play. So when I used to human-centered design, I focused a lot on play theory and gameplay. And is it okay to speak about this? So it's kind of posing a question. So it's not actually talking about children, but it's talking about the inner dance and the ability to use play.
It's good, yes. Yeah, it's like
okay.
the playlist is about play.
Yeah, okay, great. So Pi, when you were talking about I can't remember where the woman was based, but the woman who, in fact, she spoke to us, who had the bird sounds, was irritated, and then had the bird sounds, and the man started to kind of imitate it too. You spoke about potentially that being like a memory, or as connecting to the animals. What came up for me in that time was actually potentially it's the way in which we are playing as well. So when we're children, we have this ability, amazing ability to have imaginative play. And we think about all different types of things, and we pretend to be all different types of animals, and we really place ourselves into that. And a 5-year-old does 90% of their development through play at that age. And if you look at things like lucid dreaming, you can use the power of thought and imagination to completely rechange and restructure your brain. I find this all like incredible. So I suppose where it took me was that ability to open up our minds in that empathetic way, that imaginative way, is almost quite similar to channeling and learning and downloading all of this information. And if you look at adults in a normal day-to-day space, they rarely will go outside of what they know to be their basic formation. So like, this is my day-to-day, this is my role, this is what I do, this is who I am. And the places where adults feel most comfortable to bridge that gap is in play. So there's a theory called the magic circle. And the idea of that is when people come to play a game together, they enter into an unwritten and unspoken agreement called the magic circle. And when they're in this circle, they will try things that they wouldn't normally try in their normal day-to-day life. So they might be underhand and like steal money from someone in the game, or they might try be more competitive than they'd normally be, or they might be more collaborative than they'd normally be. But the ability to place themselves in this circle and this practice of play also needs imagination. Even if it's a board game like Monopoly, you still need to imagine your next moves and your next way of being, and imagine being a certain person in that role. So if you're going to be really ruthless and wipe everyone out, you might not do that in normal life. You might be very shy and very, very kind. So that ability to practice new ways of being can actually give us the ability to then try and be a little bit more like that outside of our space of play. But what's really important about this magic circle is that it's an unwritten rule. Everyone's safe to be whoever they want to be. Once you step out of that game and out of the circle and it closes, no one's going to judge you for how you behaved in that game, unless you were very rude. But, you know, in theory, you can be whatever you want to be. And I feel like music does the same thing for us as that magic circle. So it's about safety. It's about, you know, when you hear some of the teachers speaking about the children calming down and feeling soothed, there's this thing with music and beats that helps our bodies to regulate and helps us to be safe. And I think the same thing kind of comes from this magic circle for adults and in play. And what I think is really, really amazing is that the music allows them to automatically feel safe, to allow that imaginative part of their brain to come alive and to tap into that and to feel safe to do it. And so I was wondering when hearing people talk and thinking about this, is it just the music? Or is it the practice of being together and connecting all that energy and being with each other in the practice of innerdance? Where does that play into it? Because if we're sat at home and we're listening to music, and yes, it might not be a playlist, we won't necessarily go to the same places. I think music always makes you imagine, but we won't necessarily open up in quite the same way. However, we can do online inner dances, right? So like, but for me, then there's an energetic piece here. There's something that allows us to be safe that's similar to that magic circle of play that comes from inner dance. So there's my thinkings and just posed questions.
Yes. I wanna talk to this. Thank you so much. This is so beautiful. I'm gonna go back to the notes. I need my whiteboard for this. I think, so while waiting, my suggestion is we should just change the name innerdance to magic circle. It's the same. It's exactly the same. Yeah, so there we go. I'm going to be very quick with this and we'll let Tom speak. Just a quick point. So what is it in the music? Is it like any kind of music? The music of innerdance follows like a wave. And this mimics the circadian rhythms. And one sleep stage, which is basically the journey from non-REM 1 to this isn't an exact rendition, but it takes us to REM state where dream happens. And when we study that REM state, it's basically a combination of let's just do it here. Numerous brain states, delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma. Okay, my pen's doing something weird. So then there's this altered expanded state. And what that does is it allows the energy in one person to become one. But something we're yearning for is, because we're not solitary beings that live on an island, we're social beings. And this is part of our brain development. There's something about the theory of cooperation and evolution where we had to develop cooperative memory because we were storing information amongst the community. And this could be like animal communities. We actually needed bigger brains. We needed to develop the neocortex. So there's something about evolution either being competition versus cooperation. And I think a lot of the children and the adults find peace because there's something very cooperative in the vibration. So the interesting thing about the music, if it's not just going to be about music, it's like there's something in the body, the brain, the mind, but needs to cooperate our vibrations. And the reason why we sleep, to go back to the original question held, like, why am I not sleeping as much? When you reach that state where all the vibrations are now consolidating or co-activating, shall we say, could be either the sympathetic or the parasympathetic nervous system, like fear and trust now co-activates, it becomes more the psychedelic REM magic expanded awareness. You don't actually need to sleep as much because it's the reason why we sleep. It's to go into that state. And then our experience of that, when we collapse into that, the whole room becomes one. And music is the language that allows the room to become one room. And I think that's something people are yearning. A lot of the suffering in the world is happening because we're not able to communicate on that level. So if we were to take away the word music, we just call it vibrations. And if we can coordinate those vibrations. So the playlists are designed to bring people into that collective state, coming from the individual to go into the collective. That's what we're learning. And there are several ways to do it. Music is one. I hope that makes sense. Okay, maybe we can listen to Tom now.
Good notes. Yeah, I wrote so many notes on that my notes now have notes about my notes. Really, really interesting. I thought just maybe to pick up a little bit on what you and Amy were saying there about the kind of the lucid dreaming. I really liked what Amy was saying about the game, the magic circle, and it's like you're kind of expanding your ways of being in directions that you wouldn't normally maybe be able to play out or embody in real life. And I think for me that kind of speaks a lot towards empathy. It's like if I can inhabit this role, there's some kind of connection there. There's an understanding, or there's a bridge built there that I think enhances understanding. There's like an integrative quality to that, and it really reminded me of there was a period where I went through quite a lot of lucid dreaming, and they were always quite strange in nature, as in there would be something that was really uncomfortable or unpleasant. So like an image of somebody that had that I had some like unresolved issue with in the past, or like a really grating sound that was really quite, whatever it was something that I was kind of other than me, that I really had a strong resistance to. And I'd find myself like awake in these dreams and being able to, I just have like the impulse to either kind of look directly into it or move directly towards it. And these characters would almost, it was so strange, like these characters would almost become, as I was moving towards them, and I would feel this fear and this like shaking, this vibration as I was moving towards them, and then they would just kind of deflate and collapse or burst into something, and I'd feel this huge wave of relief and this sense of like it's done, whatever that was, it's done now. It's like I've expanded into that territory. And when you were talking about the snake and the uncomfortable and the disgust reflex that comes with the certain things, I was really conscious of where I would feel that in dreams, of like that kind of or I don't want to be that. But then because it's in a lucid space, it was almost like you could recognize it from a dream state and not be particularly affected by it, or at least kind of consumed by it. And yeah, to merge with it, I find myself merging with a lot of things in dreams, in lucid dreams, and then even like playing out really kind of violent things in dreams as well, and noticing where there was almost like a kind of relief. It's like a release valve thing of, this is a space where I know it's harmless, but there's some kind of impulse to be able to embody this thing that I wouldn't embody on Earth. But it's something like to be able to understand things at that kind of dark level makes me think of like roots, and like getting close to the roots. And I wrote this down when you were talking. It's like getting close to the earth and thinking of your experiences on the island, like close to the roots, down into the earth, into the roots of the earth, gives you access to the fruits of the cosmos. And this kind of, the way kind of up is down almost. Yeah, and it made me think of like the kind of the roots of when you were talking about Africa, and it all began in Africa, and the kind of the roots of the human thing, to go down into what, or back, or wherever it is, to that kind of tribal primal experience, and integrate it and regress to integrate it. There was other stuff that I thought was really interesting, like the culture is a relationship to nature. I thought was really interesting, because I'd come across this idea a while ago of how religious stories were also representative of the land, how like the Aramaic traditions and religions are, it's like Old Testament God's quite a punishing God. He's like a desert God. If you stay out in the sun too long, you're going to get burned. Everything's going to, you really got to be sharp with what you're doing, otherwise you get punished. Whereas maybe kind of more Amazonian traditions and things like that, there's this like constant generative landscape that's offering food. There's obviously dangers and things like that, but it's much more, I don't know, it feels less harsh somehow than say like the desert gods. So I found that quite interesting. And yeah, the messing up time and space with the playlist thing. I went through a stage, and I'm still kind of in it. But it started a while ago, of wanting to put sounds in playlists together, like there'd be like a Brazilian farmer's market next to the sound of a Hong Kong harbor or something like that, along with like the first word ever recorded. I went on YouTube on this bit of a kind of a nerd mission to find the weirdest sounds I could find, and it's like the oldest recording of language ever, or the sounds from recorded by a space shuttle or something like that, and putting, or like an old Irish farmer talking about life 100 years ago or something like that, and just putting all of these things together in ways that don't really make sense, but seem to just confuse but bring online so many different parts of the brain. And yeah, I thought it was really interesting, alongside things like nature sounds, like really big on using nature sounds, but then also in like digital sounds as well, and building in, you know, these kind of the digital age things alongside nature, alongside human past and human present, and different geographical locations, like the sounds of the world. It reminded me of this experiment I did where I was walking through London and just listening. Obviously was looking where I was going, but I was just listening to it. It was such a different experience of the city to listen my way through London rather than like look, because it's so usually hypnotized by vision and shapes and images. And yeah, then that kind of leads on to what you were talking about, the Marshall McLuhan thing with the visual nature of the media that we're consuming now. And there's a really fantastic book about this called Stolen Focus, by a guy called Johan Hari, and he talks about how social media is changing the shape of our brains now. Whereas you might, and this, what you were talking about, added a bit of a different dimension to this for me, where it's like you might read a book and you're exploring the depth and the nuance and the contours of somebody's mind. You know, you're really going in deep on this kind of linear. And now, as you were talking, it was like a kind of a chronological journey. Somebody's mind is like a chronology to a book. So you're going through time, and exploring with real depth. Whereas when you're, say, on Instagram or whatever, and it's like 5 seconds, or Twitter, it's like you're expanding across, maybe geographically, quite a lot with different areas. Like I can see a tweet from Africa, and then the second later something in the States and something in Asia, and it's all like geographically it's very, but there's almost like we haven't developed like the depth with it yet. There's a kind of a shallowness to it, because it's like, and there's a lot of judgment with it. It's like one person makes a tweet and it will be, I will use that tweet to define that one person. There's like a judgment thing. It's like there hasn't quite been developed the depth to be able to hold everything, like the totality of that one person. It's more like they're just flattened into the thing that they said last week while they were sitting on the toilet or something like that. So I thought that was like super interesting, how it seems like with the internet and this kind of global nervous system coming online, through silica and other things, there is the dimensionality of like geographical connection, where I can just be instantly anywhere in the world with light, with visual things and sounds, but it doesn't give me maybe the depth of time to understand that entire place yet. And so that hasn't been developed as a kind of a dimensionality. There was a question I had also about the West and the East, and I thought that was super interesting as well. And as you were talking, I was mapping it onto the electricity and the magnetism curve, and wondering, is it then that electricity is rising in the West, or is this not the kind of the model that relates to it, and magnetism is rising in the East, or is it something other than that?
It could be seen in that way for sure. Like if magnetism is more mental,
Yeah.
and electricity is more like non-mind. But there's so much more to this. We can go into it next month because it would slot into some of the topics there. There's maybe 3 or 4 different angles from a neurological and philosophical perspective.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's me done then. That's quite a lot of talking, but thanks everybody for listening, and thanks for in the chat.
Igra.
Hey, hi everyone. Yeah, a lot of what I was hearing made me go back into something that I'm reading now. I'm reading a book from Catherine Malabou, and I actually chose this one because the title is "What Should We Do with Our Brain?" And I was like, okay, what is there for me to do with this brainy brain that is here? And one of the concepts that she really dissects is the one of plasticity, and how plasticity actually entails two actions, the one which gives form and the one that also takes form. So it's kind of like the brain being this thing. So this is everything that I was visualizing after, or in the background of the sharings and the lecture, was more like seeing how the interconnectedness of the brain is into what it has from history in itself, or as being history in itself, was what it already has and what is also shaping into what it is shaping into. So it's kind of like seeing this brain that is something that gives, or it's something formed into something, but it is also creating its own form. And I usually I actually like talking a lot about facilitation and how do we hold space and what does it mean to hold space. And one of the questions today in the Portuguese, not today, this week in the Portuguese group, was actually that, how do we start a session? How do we hold this and all of that? And instantly I was like, who is holding this space and who is doing all of this, and what are we holding the space for? I think I got one of the answers now, how this brain is there holding this space for not just the brain as like an organ, but what it also represents as a history, or as the history of history and everything that has been shared among us. So it does, I was looking at the vesica piscis, and I usually use the vesica piscis to talk about facilitation and how one circle is the space holder, the other one is the group, and how there is a middle space in between, and how do we create that middle space in between, which is also the I and the other. But today I was like, it's not just the I, it's not just the other, it's the eye and the earth, or the eye of the earth, that is right there in the middle, and it's all coming through this brain that is doing its thing. So I was really again I was even considering, like, okay, so is it the energy that is holding the space? And one possible answer that is really body-based, I love the body-based approaches to it. It's also the brain that is holding this space for this, as we hold space for it. So yeah, thank you very much for these insights and all of it. Bye.
Thank you, Gra. Ines, can you go next?
Hi everyone. I had just one experience with my own children. They are my daughter is 2.5 and my son 4.5. They were very tired and overactive. And I set the womb list on, and after 10, at 50 minutes, they were very calm. No struggles. My son just sit on the bar, sit and eat something, and my daughter was painting. And she said, "Mom, everyone dies." I said, "Yes." She had a few clear about that. It was very special. And after the womb finished, after 15 minutes, they were not tired anymore, and they were very, very, very active. And when my children are very irritating, or if there is something, when I go outside on barefoot, I see the same evolution. They calm down, they play with, well, not toys, just with nature materials, and I see the same. Yeah, when they're in nature, I see the same connection. Then I see what the womb list, of their playlist. Yeah, it was very special. It's a start for me to try at school. And there was another connection with everything that Pai said. From my experience, how can I explain it? I went 3 months to Africa, and everyone in Africa said to us, "I want to go to Europe." And now when I have my awakening, I understand a little bit. What I want is the connection with people, with not with Facebook or something else, but we want a connection with people and with nature again. And in Africa, Asia, some other countries also, they have the connection, and they want, we constant vergelijken. We constant see another country. We want that also, and that's what's the Facebook and Instagram and everything else does. I think the connection to all of this, also with the innerdance, is just the nature. And there was something else that Pai said about the apes. I think the language of the speaking is indeed very quiet, but is there a study maybe the ear from the apes? I think I think they can hear a lot the noise from the trees, and I think sometimes I think I want only a nature playlist. Is there only a nature playlist? Only from sounds of nature? I don't know. If there is something else.
There's apps that have just nature. Well, we can go into that for sure. It's the noise app, and when we could just play it, but we would probably feel there would be people inspired from this call that would create more and more these. But there are a lot of playlists that do have nature sounds. It's just that we juxtapose them with human story elements as well.
Okay.
But it would be interesting. Did you have anything more? Amazing shares, by the way.
But I just something a few weeks ago. When I work, I set also the nature playlist on. Sometimes with birds, sometimes with dolphins, or something with Tibetanse music. And there was one time, but I sent it to Sophie, a playlist, and one specific sound, it did something very amazing when I worked. I don't know what. I don't see anything, but I thought that's a sound. I can mail it. There was something specific with that sound. I don't know what. I think the basic of all is nature. Yeah. Yeah, it's fascinating. Sometimes some things must come in. We will see. Thank you for the inspiring call, Kai, and everyone else.
Okay, thank you, Ines. Thank you, everyone. I'm going to integrate and close. So it's been a massive week. I suggest that you watch the other call. If you haven't have access to that, ask for it from your guide, your facilitator, your group holder. There was a lot there too that repeats the same themes, but are actually quite super different. Thank you, Ahilan, so much for helping to host the call. It's really important that we sense how we can hold this in a group space. Sandra, you raise your hand. Do you want to do a last share and then we'll close? Because we're kind of closing already based on the timing.
I do feel I still want to share it because I'm a big believer at that one. And what I see with the children is amazing. But if it's with a but just a question. But if I look at my own process, I use a lot of the playlists like Mind Noise during the day and the sleeping playlist. And I can see that when I'm doing it through the day, it's not like I get a lot of visuals but I feel that it's doing something with my body. And afterwards, I have a lot of nightmares. So dreams where a lot of fears are coming up. So it means that something is coming up to the surface, which is good. But the next days, I'm always like feeling refreshed. And I think, whew, yeah, it was a good one. But then it goes back into a phase. And then I also feel like my body is getting into a functional freeze. Like, I don't know if it's really connected with that, but it's also like I'm gaining a lot of weight again, not by doing another pattern, but it feels like that my body is also next to the things that are coming up, that it's also putting on their coping mechanisms very hard to like keeping me also like my back pains are back again. I'm very tired and this, but like in a closed period of when I now start using the playlist. It's not that it's giving me a conscious fear because I know it's probably a part of the process, but it's still something that I have felt that I wanted to share because I feel like also if in the other piece of studies that I'm doing that I have like the wondering question, like in which kind of way is it important in advance that you have a safe container so that your body and mind connection is already in a certain state enough to go next to really into the depth to putting stuff up so it could be really a release and not that there is a coping mechanism who is just putting a stronger armor or something. It's just a way of thinking. Maybe it's not about that, but it's because I was start typing also from the kids that I was also putting myself next to it, and that there were some linings like, yeah, just to have like some clearance about it, or maybe to see also because I want to work with it also with my other clients in my personal space, but I feel that my body is also, there is a revealing, but also very tightness in it. Headaches, so a lot of physical symptoms were coming up. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. This is a really big one to open the next phases of the journey. Because we're closing, we'll keep it tight. Innerdance in general is a self-guided process. Like I didn't have people to support me when I was receiving the energy alone. And when we hold a space, even with children, we're teaching even the children to take responsibility, that independence is the greatest gift we can give another soul. And the sound teaches us that there's a sense of togetherness, but there's a deep, intimate solitude that allows us to really conduct the energy that's within us. So we would always come from a deep listening space. It's like we have to learn to listen to our bodies, and sometimes we need to do that from a place of discomfort. I have been learning a lot from the Belgian experience over the years, and especially in the last years, I've seen that it's actually in the discomfort where most of the insights are coming from. So there would be playlisting systems. Some of the weirdest playlists actually came from working with Belgian brains, where kind of surgery was happening, and we found out that the ones that were the most irritating, they were the ones that were conducting the most transformation, like even elements that couldn't be healed by doctors for decades. They were healing in a matter of days. So I'm happy to see like a certain combination of courage, wisdom, insight, fun, creativity coming about. Katarina is in this group, and interestingly, we heard so many things coming from Belgium that's happening within an institutional space. Like it's not just in the two sharings that were coming from school that's happening in Belgium. There's actually a lot of different classroom systems coming out of that one country that's always held like a very integrative inner dance. So Katerina has been spearheading a possibility where we can conduct more research. And to be able to do that, we need to gather data from all the experiences, whether it be the sleep playlists or the womb room, the whale song, the synthesis type playlists, the ones that have more words, the ones that have themes in them. Now, going into that, like Cassia asked a question, like, can you access like all of these? Probably the best would be to, we'll confer based on the ones who are holding regional spaces together. We don't want to overwhelm you because there's really so much that have been created by me, by others. So that's why we're releasing just a few at a time. In connection with research, we're really interested in perceiving patterns. So we can probably think about releasing folders more. I think it's best to do it through the website. So maybe just check there in the next days. We'll find a way. I think if we release the playlist, we would like people to share their experiences in the spirit of feedback and learning. Like we really would be interested in how there could be greater understanding. And we want to honor your journeys. We want to honor your transformation. And there's something very supportive about putting that out. Like the dream is actually to come into a possibility where we're dreaming together. This earth, we are on that deep responsibility that we're dreaming this earth together, with there be connections to meeting in that collective consciousness we call the dream. I really liked what you shared, Gura, and I think this is important to bring up Catherine Malibu in this way. Her first book was her thesis that was guided by Jacques Derrida. and the title of the book was The Future of Hegel, and she opens that book by clarifying that the brain doesn't just have a history, that the brain is history itself. In a way, the brain is that which organizes electricity, and electricity is information. It is also content. It's not just media in a way. So I think that's a really good way of studying the brain that we are experiencing that is also going through changes. To still maybe use what Sandrine shared as a closing and an opening. When we study different psychologies, and we are wearing psychological hats, neurological hats, teacher, facilitator, healer, philosopher hats. If we're wearing a psychological hat, what the question is like, what kind of psychology do we hold? Would it be psychoanalytic? Would it be behavioral? Would it be cognitivist? This talk illuminates that innerdance could also hold very polar psychologies. They would be bookends to hold an understanding of what is the mind, which is now an embodied mind. So they would be developmental psychology, the understanding of the roots or the origins of the human, like where did we come from as individuals, as persons. That's the ontogenetic. And the phylogenetic would be evolutionary psychology is getting quite big now, an understanding of the mind that's evolved through, that's belonging to the species level or the earth level. The thing is, the terms of developmental is very, very different from evolutionary. They don't really share the same space. I think innerdance is a bridge so that the story of the individual is also the story of the planet. It's the same story somehow. And there are possible experiences of this. Some people through psychedelics, through the really deep innerdance processes, through spiritual awakenings, through the life review that happens in the new experience. There are glimpses of how is my story actually connected to the story of everything else. I think we need a brain state to get to access this, a time perception and a dimensionality. And somehow innerdance is that. So I think that's pretty much it. There were certain things that I wasn't totally able to make clear. That's probably in the notes. But that's why we are in a conversation for the long term. So feel brave. Envelope yourself with more and more trust as we work on a greater understanding of this mysterious thing that's emerging across the world. Take responsibility. This isn't just Pi. This isn't just say Tom or Katie or Gra, Ahilan. This is all of us, I think, that's owning this as something new that's also owned by everyone else. This is like we're all witnessing this together. It's so embryonic. It's not adolescent yet. It's a fetus. It's fetal. It's embryonic. It's still in a birthing process, and it's quite amazing that you find yourself here as partially like a midwife. So I was really amazed to hear sharings of how this is being shared in homes or in schools. Really impressed by what's happening in Europe in this way. And I hope we can keep sharing, and I hope this inspires. And so, Ahilan, in the spirit of you opening the call, maybe you can help us close as a big group.
Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for coming and joining. maybe you can open your mic and open your camera and say goodbye in your language, in any language, make any sound. Bye bye. Thank you for beautiful.
Bye.
Bye.
Goeie
Bye.
Bye.
Mhm.
Au revoir. Au
Bye.
revoir.
Bye.
Mm.
Okay.
Okay.